The 7 uncrossable lines of the awakened woman. How to finally set boundaries.
Have you ever felt it? A sense of profound exhaustion that sleep can't touch. A feeling that your very soul is a house with no doors, a public thoroughfare where anyone can wander in, track mud on the floors, rearrange the furniture, and leave their emotional baggage in the hallway. You feel a constant, low-grade draft, a quiet depletion of your own warmth, your own light, because the walls that are meant to contain your essence have become porous, permeable, almost non-existent. You spend your days tidying up the messes others have left, answering knocks at all hours, and smiling politely as strangers and loved ones alike mistake your sanctuary for a public square. And at night, when the last visitor has gone, you stand in the echo-filled silence of your own inner world and wonder, is there any part of this space that is still truly mine? This feeling isn't a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that you are waking up. It is the first whisper of a profound truth trying to reach you. Your soul was designed to be a sacred home, not a wayside inn. And somewhere along the journey of your life, you were taught that the price of love and acceptance was to hand over the keys and never, ever lock the doors. You were taught that being a good woman, a good daughter, partner, mother, or friend meant your home was always open, your energy always available, your space always up for grabs. Today, we are going to walk through this house together. We are not here to judge the clutter or the cracked foundations. We are here to understand its architecture, to read the original blueprints of your being, and to find the keys that you may have forgotten you even possess. This is not a journey about building walls of anger or fortresses of bitterness. It is a journey of homecoming. It is about remembering how to live within yourself in a way that feels safe, whole, and sovereign. If this resonates with you, if you feel a stirring of recognition in your heart, then I invite you to continue this exploration with us. By subscribing to Mind Decode Explained, you are joining a community of fellow travelers, all learning to navigate the beautiful, complex landscape of the inner world. Let's begin this journey home, together. Imagine this sacred house of your soul. When you were born, it was pristine. It was yours. The foundation was your intrinsic worth. The walls were your natural energetic outlines, and every room was filled with the light of your purest potential. But very early on, the world began its renovations. Perhaps you grew up in a home where the doors had to be kept open at all times. Privacy was seen as secrecy, and your own emotional space was subject to constant inspection. The great physician and trauma expert, Dr. Gabor Maté, speaks of how children, in order to preserve their attachment to their caregivers, will often sacrifice their own authenticity. In the language of our house, you learned that to ensure the people you depended on wouldn't leave, you had to allow them complete access. You couldn't lock the door to your bedroom, your diary, or your heart. This pattern of insecure attachment becomes the blueprint for all future relationships. You learn to equate love with a lack of boundaries, connection with a kind of enmeshment. Then, as you grew, society handed you the decorating guide. The great psychologist Carl Jung called this the times persona, times the social mask we wear to be acceptable to the world. In our house, the persona is the perfectly manicured lawn, the welcoming wreath on the door, the furniture in the living room arranged not for your comfort, but for the approval of guests. You painted the walls in colors that others found pleasing. You hung pictures that told a story of a life everyone would admire. The flawless mother, the endlessly patient partner, the dutiful daughter, the ever-reliable friend. For years, maybe decades, you played the part of the perfect hostess in a house that looked beautiful from the outside, but felt increasingly foreign to you on the inside. You gave an Oscar-worthy performance, until one day, your body, in the words of the psychiatrist Bessel Kolk, began to keep the score. The foundation of the house began to crack. The constant draft became an unbearable chill. The exhaustion turned into a bone-deep ache, a chronic illness, a wave of anxiety or depression. This breakdown is not a failure. It is the house's alarm system. screaming that it can no longer sustain the strain of being a public institution. It is a breakthrough, a desperate, loving call from your own soul, begging you to come home. It's in the rubble of that shattered identity, amidst the decorations that no longer make sense, that a slow, quiet, cellular recalibration begins. You start to feel, with unshakable certainty, the property lines of your own soul. You begin to distinguish the solid ground of your own energy field from the shifting sands of other people's expectations. This journey, which Jung called times individuation asterisk, is the process of reclaiming your house. It's about finding the authentic fragments of your true self and beginning the painstaking work of tearing away the layers of wallpaper, chipping off the foreign paint, and discovering the original architecture that lies beneath. And as you do this, a natural frontier emerges where once there was only porous vulnerability. You realize that for years, you've been trying to set boundaries by putting up flimsy, polite little signs that say, "Please keep off the grass," while leaving the front door wide open. You were exhausted by the constant battle to defend them. But the woman who is truly awakening operates on a different frequency. She stops trying to put up signs on the lawn. She realizes she times the house. She doesn't just set boundaries. She times the boundary. Her very presence becomes the demarcation of her sacred space. The first line she will never again let be crossed, the first door she learns to lock, protects the very definition of her being. She no longer permits others to be the architects of her identity. For so long, the script of who she was supposed to be was written by others. It was a character stitched together from her mother's unfulfilled dreams, her partner's needs, her children's demands, and society's rulebook. But nowhere in that intricate costume could her own soul be found, so she begins to remove it piece by piece. And this act of reclamation often causes confusion and resistance in those around her. Why? Because dysfunctional systems, as family systems theory teaches us, are built on a fragile equilibrium. They need every member to play their designated, predictable part. When one person stops performing the role that keeps the system stable, the entire set begins to wobble. Your partner, who was used to you being the ever-accommodating peacekeeper, might accuse you of becoming cold. Your family, who relied on you to absorb all the tension, might call you selfish. They are not necessarily malicious. They are reacting to the shift in the system. They are knocking on a door that was always open and for the first time finding it closed. But the awakened woman has made an inner vow that is unshakable. She no longer exists to be the supporting actress in someone else's story. She will not contort the architecture of her soul into a shape that makes others comfortable. This boundary is absolute. She doesn't negotiate it through long, pleading explanations. She doesn't defend it in a high-stakes emotional court. She simply embodies it. There are moments, of course, when the old programming tries to pull her back, when familiar voices jiggle the handle of the locked door, trying to squeeze her into the box she so perfectly filled for so long. But something in her has fundamentally shifted. Where there was once an automatic, reflexive yes to every request, there is now a sacred pause. She has learned to live in that space between the world's request and her response. And there, in that silent gap, in the quiet hallway of her own home, she consults not the expectations of her guests, but the truth of her own heart. From that place, she answers not as the woman they need her to be, but as the woman she is. The second line she draws protects her from emotional invasion disguised as love. This is the door to the deepest, most private rooms of her house. Jung identified a phenomenon he called times participation mystique asterisk, a state where psychological boundaries become so blurred that a person begins to absorb the emotions, anxieties, and responsibilities that belong to someone else. Many of us are conditioned to mistake this for empathy. We believe that to be a loving person means to feel everything the other person feels, to let their emotional storms rage through our hallways, to carry every piece of their heavy furniture up our stairs. But this is not true connection. This is energetic enmeshment. It is allowing someone else's leaky plumbing to flood your foundation. It poisons both souls involved. The awakened woman has learned to tell the difference. She can sit with you in your pain, offering you a warm cup of tea in her living room without taking on your storm as her own. She can be fully present with you without dissolving into you. She understands that every soul must inhabit its own house, tend to its own garden, and repair its own leaks. Think of the parent who calls at all hours with manufactured emergencies, essentially demanding you drop your own life to fix a dripping faucet in theirs. Or the partner who frames their wants as non-negotiable demands, acting as if they hold a co-deed to your property. Before, the awakened woman would have opened the door to every single request, believing this was the definition of love and duty. Now, she has installed an energetic gatekeeper. She has learned that she can love someone deeply without giving them unrestricted access to her inner world. She consciously chooses when to open the door, when to speak through the screen, and when to simply let the knocking go unanswered, trusting that they have the capacity to manage their own home. To those who grew accustomed to her limitless availability, this shift can feel like betrayal or coldness. But she knows this is not cruelty, it is self-preservation. It is not rejection, it is the honoring of a fundamental truth. Every soul needs its own outline, its own sacred space. Without that separation, there can be no true meeting of two whole people, only energetic cannibalism where one consumes the other to feel complete. The third line manifests in her refusal to put her own interior design choices on trial. This is the trap many of us fall into our entire lives, the trap of compulsive justification. Every choice, from the color she paints a room to the decision to build a new wing, becomes a thesis defense where she is the sole presenter and the world is her critical review board. She learned early on that her autonomy wasn't a given, but a privilege to be earned through convincing arguments and deferential explanations. The conditioning runs so deep that even the smallest personal desire is phrased as a question. Is it okay if I want this? Do you mind if I need this? You see, the reason I'm doing this is because. The researcher and author Brené Brown talks about how we overfunction and over-explain as a way to manage the anxiety and judgment of others. We are essentially giving a guided tour of our house to everyone who knocks, hoping that if they understand our reasoning for every single piece of furniture, they will approve of us and our right to live here. The awakened woman has stopped putting her inner knowing up for public debate. She can now differentiate between a visitor's genuine curiosity and a manipulative cross-examination. One comes from a desire to understand, the other comes from a need to control. And when someone challenges her decision with the energy of entitlement, she responds with a clarity that short-circuits any argument. This is my choice, or this is what works for me. Full stop. No appendix, no footnotes, no apology. Just the quiet, solid truth of her own home. This posture baffles those who are used to women explaining, defending, and shrinking themselves to make their choices more palatable. But she understands a critical principle. Anyone who truly respects your sovereignty will never demand that you justify it. Only those who wish to control your space insist on endless explanations. She has realized that this demand for justification is a subtle, insidious form of dominance. It's a way to keep her in a perpetual state of defense, so she never has the chance to stand firmly on her own foundation. Every time she over-explains, she leaks a little of her sovereignty. She hands a visitor a key. Every time she puts her choice up for a vote, she invites them to believe they have a say in how she runs her own home. And so, she has learned to break the cycle, not with aggression, but with a quiet refusal to play a game she was never meant to win. The fourth line protects her from disrespect dressed up as brutal honesty or just a joke. These are the passive-aggressive termites that can chew away at the wooden beams of her self-worth. It's the backhanded compliment about the way she's decorated a room. Oh, this is cozy. It's brave of you to use so much color. It's the snide remark disguised as a helpful tip. Are you sure you want to put that there? It makes the room look smaller. It's the harmless joke about her sensitivity that makes her feel foolish for feeling anything at all. The awakened woman has developed an internal radar for these microaggressions, even when they are wrapped in cotton candy. She knows that covert disrespect is more dangerous than an open fight because it erodes your sense of reality slowly, drop by drop, while denying you the right to even say, ouch. The classic defense, I was just joking, you're being too sensitive, is a form of gaslighting. It's someone tracking mud all over your clean floor and then telling you that you're crazy for seeing the footprints. The awakened woman refuses to normalize this daily drip of poison. She establishes this boundary not with a fiery confrontation, but often with her absence. She simply withdraws her presence, her light, her warmth from those who do not honor the dignity of her home. She stops inviting them over, quietly, finally, without a forwarding address. If you notice a shift in your life, if people who were once staples of your daily routine suddenly fade away, it is not coldness. It is a consequence. It is the natural result of you deciding to only invest your energy where your home is cherished, not criticized. The fifth line concerns projections, which are perhaps the most insidious invaders of all. Jung taught us that what we cannot accept in ourselves, we often project onto others. Dysfunctional families and unhealthy partnerships often single out one person, usually the most sensitive and aware, to be the screen for everyone else's unowned shadows. In the metaphor of our house, this is like your neighbors putting their overflowing garbage cans in your front yard and then complaining that your property looks messy. You become the problem because your very neatness highlights their chaos. You are cast as too emotional because you can feel the tension everyone else is denying. You are labeled the difficult one because your refusal to pretend everything is fine exposes the cracks in their own foundations. The awakened woman understands this psychological mechanism. She has learned to distinguish between what belongs in her house and what has been dumped on her doorstep. She can recognize the anger that isn't hers, the guilt that doesn't stem from her actions, the shame that she inherited but never earned. She recognizes it is not her job to be an emotional landfill for others. The journey of individuation demands that every person takes responsibility for their own refuse. By accepting their projections, by allowing them to dump their garbage on her lawn, she not only cripples herself, but also robs them of their own opportunity for growth. So she begins to hand things back, not with aggression, but with a calm, firm clarity. When someone accuses her of being angry, she might look within, and if she finds no anger, she can simply say, I understand that you feel that way, but that anger does not belong to me, or I will not carry this for you anymore. This is psychic hygiene, not heartlessness. And for those who are accustomed to offloading their internal chaos onto her, this refusal feels like a profound betrayal. They will get angry that their dumping ground is no longer available, but the awakened woman stands her ground. She keeps her yard clean, and something remarkable happens. Relationships that only functioned as long as she served as the emotional dumping ground begin to dissolve. And although it is painful, although a deep loneliness can sometimes grip her heart, she knows this is a clean loneliness. It is the quiet peace of a tidy house, waiting for guests who know how to respect it. The sixth line protects her from the demand that she set fire to a room in her own house to keep someone else warm. This is the archetype of the martyr, the kind of neurotic loyalty that mistakes pain for purpose. Many women have been conditioned to believe that true love means self-abandonment, that a good relationship requires self-denial. But the awakened woman has seen through this great lie. She understands that healthy, life-giving connections nurture the essence of both souls. They do not demand amputation. If a connection with a partner, a friend, a family member, can only survive if she locks away parts of herself, if she boards up the windows to her brightest rooms, it is not love, it is a cage. If shared history or blood ties are used as leverage to keep her trapped in a house that is toxic or crumbling, it is not loyalty, it is an emotional prison. The awakened woman finds the courage to walk away, not in a blaze of glory, but with the quiet dignity of someone who is choosing to save her own home from demolition. She realizes that transforming another human being is not her responsibility, but protecting her own integrity is non-negotiable. This does not mean she stops loving. it means she stops betraying herself in the name of love. And when you leave a relationship that others deem sacred, you will be judged. But these judgments come from those who are still content to live in crumbling houses, because the fear of rebuilding is greater than the pain of the current decay. Their criticism is not a reflection of your truth. It is a mirror of their own fear of freedom. This leads us to the seventh and most profound boundary, the very foundation upon which the entire sacred house is built. It is the refusal to betray herself to keep the peace. This is the ultimate fortress an awakened woman builds around her soul. She will never again sacrifice her inner truth for the sake of a fragile, external harmony. A woman can spend an entire lifetime in a state of apparent peace while a brutal civil war rages within her. She smiles while her soul is screaming. She agrees while her essence is recoiling. She stays silent when her truth is begging to be spoken. This false peace is built on the rubble of her own silenced spirit. The awakened woman has understood that the temporary tension that comes from speaking her truth is always preferable to the slow, soul-crushing death of inauthenticity. She will choose a conscious conflict over a false harmony, not because she loves to fight, but because she values the structural integrity of her own house more than the comfort of her visitors. She knows that every lie she lives, every truth she swallows, is a crack in her own foundation. When this final boundary is firmly in place, a vibrational reorganization occurs. People who required her compliance simply fade away, as they no longer have a key that works. Situations that demanded her self-betrayal dissolve. It is as if the universe itself rearranges to honor the sovereignty of her home. And yes, your social circle may shrink. The invitations might stop coming. Family dynamics might fracture. And in the quiet moments, you might wonder if you've gone too far, if you've become selfish or harsh. But then you feel it, that deep, quiet certainty in your core, the profound peace that can only exist when you are living in alignment with the true architecture of your soul. This is not selfishness. This is soul preservation at its most sacred. This is homecoming. The woman who has anchored these 7 boundaries within her lives differently. She moves through the world with a presence that is both gentle and unshakable. Her boundaries are not primarily verbal. They are energetic. They communicate themselves through her very being. People instinctively sense what is permissible and what is not. Those who cannot respect her dignity simply find no energetic access to her, not because she has built an impenetrable fortress, but because her very essence has become its own protection. Her clarity is her shield. The solitude she once feared is now her sanctuary. She has learned that it is better to be alone in a house that is truly yours than to be in a crowded party where you must pretend to be someone else. This conscious solitude is the space where her essence can finally breathe, expand, and simply be. And in this space, she discovers something surprising. When she stops abandoning her own home, she attracts people who have no desire to invade it. When she stops carrying the projections of others, she meets souls who are not looking for a screen. The quality of her connections changes fundamentally. Quantity becomes irrelevant. What matters is the mutual honoring of 2 sacred, sovereign homes, with doors that can be opened with joy by invitation. This path is not without its pain. It cost you the illusion of harmony you worked your entire life to maintain. It cost you the version of yourself that other people loved because she was convenient. But what it gives you in return is priceless. It gives you back your own home. It gives you back yourself. It gives you integrity, dignity, and a profound, unshakable peace that comes from knowing you are finally, truly living in your own truth. You are no longer at war with yourself. You are home. Perhaps you recognize this house. Perhaps you are standing on the porch right now, key in hand, afraid to step inside and see the disarray. Or perhaps you have already begun the loving work of renovation. Wherever you are, know that this journey is yours to take, at your own pace. Your soul is waiting. It has never stopped waiting for you to come home.